talking the Banana Splits movie. This one is directed by Wojtak-Hissong, who has mainly done kind of like female-centric kind of films before. And this is kind of a weird horror comedy hybrid. So Banana Splits actually based on an existing property, and it's actually a kind of a TV show that I used to watch when I was a kid, along with my brother. In fact, my brother, it's one of his favourite kind of TV shows. It was kind of like a kids' variety show where we had kind of people dressed up as, you know, sort of fluffy animals and things like that. And there was kind of various kind of like pratfalls and stunts and, you know, cartoons in between and things like this. Not one that's kind of like particularly stayed in kind of pop culture relevance, I don't think. In fact, this film wasn't actually originally made to be a Banana Splits movie. It was actually, the script was first actually a Five Nights at Freddy script, that being a video game property which has a similar kind of style to what we've ended up with here, kind of like killer animatronic kind of plush animals and things like that, and that's kind of what we've got here. So yeah, it originally was a Five Nights at Freddy movie, but it had changed into Banana Splits after kind of like some rights issues, I believe. So you may think this movie is kind of similar to things like Meet the Feebles, and then there was the Happy Time Murders, which obviously starred Melissa McCarthy. Similar, but I would actually say this is kind of more along the lines of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory meets Five Nights at Freddy's. You squish those properties together and out pops this one. So what is the story here? So the Banana Splits are, as in real life, a kind of a variety kind of kids show where there's lots of kind of like silly things and kind of activities and stuff like that. And there's a live taping, and it focuses mainly on this particular family. We've got this young boy called Harley, who's like a huge fan of Banana Splits. His older brother, who's about 19, the mum, and the kind of the second husband, who's not the father of the older child, but is the father of the younger one. And for the birthday, they've gone to this kind of live taping of this kind of Banana Splits. And they bring this other little girl as well, who's like a friend of his. So they go there, and there's a few other kind of characters that will kind of, there's a couple of YouTubers, there's a kind of guy there who's hoping to kind of try and get his daughter discovered to become famous, etc. And they kind of watch the kind of, obviously, the show, and the actual Banana Splits characters themselves are not men in suits, they are actually animatronic robots. And the creator has just done a kind of an update which causes them to turn homicidal. So after the kind of the show is done, there's a few kind of characters that are left over, a few people, a few staff, then a few kind of like people who have wanted to stay kind of backstage to kind of meet the Banana Splits, etc. And they're kind of locked in, and then the kind of these kind of four fluffy robots go on a killer rampage. So let's talk about this movie. What works, first of all? Now, you might think, yeah, it is similar to like Meet the Feebles, but the difference here is this really is an existing property. So, you know, it's kind of like, imagine the actual Muppets going on a murderous rampage, rather than kind of obviously kind of ones that are made originally for a film. So that's the difference with this one, I think. And it's such a bizarre and kind of like film that you can really enjoy on somewhat of an ironic level, I think. The gore effects here are surprisingly strong. We see various kind of like death, people getting ripped to pieces, decapitations, people getting sawn in half, people's heads getting crushed. And it doesn't shy away from the gore, and I have to say this. Then the gore effects are done for the most part to a pretty good effect. So a little bit of kind of CGI, blood and stuff to kind of tweak it, which is a little bit obvious, but for the most part I would say pretty good. And I really enjoyed the characters. Our family in particular, maybe not less so the husband, but the kind of the young boy and his little friend, I thought they were absolutely adorable, and kind of really did seem like they were kind of like wide-eyed kids, kind of just being amazed at this kind of thing that they were sort of seeing, they were a huge fan of. I really enjoyed the kind of the teenage son as well, because initially he's going to be like the kind of like the typical kind of like belligerent teenager, but he actually has layers, believe it or not. And then the kind of the mother turns into a kind of a bit of an Ellen Ripley, even kind of taking off her top to kind of have this vest up underneath, becoming her a bit of in a Die Hard mode, which I thought was quite fun. And the film is quite a lot of fun. Obviously, we have these wacky characters kind of doing murderous things, but still being kind of in character, saying the kind of the catchphrases and stuff like that. So it's not as if they are kind of they're acting and saying weird things. They're still saying the same things, but obviously just killing people at the same kind of time. And yeah, there's kind of a few kind of different kind of set pieces, and the set design I think is all very good. You making use of the kind of the actual props from what this kind of show takes place in. What doesn't work for me, I've got to say, I felt the explanation of why these characters were bad to begin with was a little flimsy. Because they seem to be killing, I don't want to spoil too much, but they seem to be killing certain people, but not others, and I don't think there wasn't really an explanation for that. And I have to say as well, the actual characters that we have, our human characters, outside of the three that I've mentioned, are all very broad. And there's ones that are kind of good guys, and there's ones that are bad guys, and you kind of know the kind of the bad guys are all going to go for the chop, and the kind of the good guys are going to be, you know, more or less safe as a plot armour. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of a variety in, you know, this guy is morally reprehensible, so therefore he's going to get it, and this person is, you know, seems to be quite good, therefore they're safe. It would have been better to me to have maybe mixed it up a little bit and not be kind of just, you know, be quite as obvious about who was going to kind of get the chop, so to speak. There's only one character I feel which is maybe straddles the line a little bit. The actual banana splits themselves are relatively character free, however. I think partially because they are in this movie robots, they seem more plot devices rather than kind of characters in their own right. There is a little bit of a hint that they may have some sentience, but again, it's just not really kind of explored upon, and it just seems like it's never really expanded on, and we don't really know what the actual situation is. There's also a kind of a turn at the end where I feel it's maybe trying to set itself up for a sequel, which seems a little weak, I've got to say. Overall, though, it's actually a little bit of a fun film. I don't think it's. I mean, it's a lot of novelty factor with this movie, and that's, you know, that might be enough, I think, for a lot of people. And you know, I was certainly entertained through that. But I feel if you kind of look past the novelty factor, it's just more or less a kind of like fairly kind of humdrum horror film, but certainly not a bad one, and an enjoyable one with some kind of like, you know, weird kind of position where we have known characters going on a killing rampage, which makes it kind of that does have a little bit of a unique flavour, but the actual nuts and bolts of the story are relatively kind of like generic. But I will give this one a slightly above average. I'll give it a 6 out of 10 because it's worth watching on a novelty value, and you can enjoy it on a kind of like bizarre, ironic kind of level. I'll give this one a 6 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.